Okay, today's lesson is National 5 straight line topic. We'll cover the equation of a straight line, how to draw it, things to work out, how to work out the gradient, the y-intercept, that type of idea. Okay, straight line. Straight line equation has a certain format. There's a few formats, but we'll look at a particular type. Straight line has format, and this format I'm going to show you is the most common and it's most useful, and it's easy to work out and write down things like the gradient, the y-intercept using this particular format. So it's y equals mx plus c, and all these values here are letters mean something. Now there's only one particular straight line that doesn't have this format, and we'll do that in a wee minute, we'll look at that in a wee minute. But let's look at this format here. The y stands for the y coordinate, m stands for the gradient, and if you watch the other video that I've got there, it shows you how to work out the gradient using two coordinates. X is the x coordinate, and c is a thing called the y-intercept, or where it crosses the y-axis. So let's draw a few straight lines and see what's what. So this particular one here, here's the y-axis, here's the x-axis, and from your knowledge of gradient, you can see it has a positive gradient sloping left to right up the way. And any point in this line is defined using this equation. So if I put a point on the line and we call it xy, then the y here stands for the y coordinate. So if I put a wee dotted line here, whatever that value is, that value for the y coordinate at this point here is equal to mx plus c. Now x is the x coordinate. Draw a line in it. Here's the x coordinate. There's the y coordinate. M is the gradient, the actual gradient itself. So it's positive gradient. So m is greater than 0. It's at some value. We don't know what it is, but it's some value. And this value here, c, the y-intercept. This is where it crosses the y-axis, and that coordinate there is 0, c. And that's how these things are connected. So the y coordinate is equal to the gradient times the x coordinate plus c. And that's true for any straight line. Let's look at another horizontal straight line and see what kind of equation we get for that. So here's the y axis again, x-axis, and let's draw in a horizontal line for this. So we'll just put it up here, make it nice and easy, we'll put it up a bit here. So this point here that crosses the y-axis is 0c. Now in this case, from your knowledge from gradient, you should realise, because it's a horizontal line, the gradient is 0. It's equal to 0. So for a horizontal line, the equation of the line is still this, but the gradient is 0, therefore it can simplify, and it simplifies to y equals c. C being where it crosses the y-axis. Okay. Let's look at another type when the gradient is negative. So we'll just draw one down like this. This is the c value. This is y axis and x axis. So in this case, you can see that from your knowledge of gradient, that the gradient this time is less than 0. But again, because it's a straight line, it has this format, y equals mx plus c. And we know this time, just because of the shape or the direction of the straight line, going down the way, that this value m is negative, whereas it's positive in this one, negative in this one. So let's write down some equations this could be. Okay, so this could be something like y equals a positive gradient, say 2x, and it looks like it crosses around about 1. So a possible value for that equation of a straight line would be something like that. For this one here, where we know the gradient is 0, so a possible equation for this one would be, let's make c equal to 2, y equals 2 or something. That seems a possible one for this. Now this one here, well, the gradient is negative, so we could say it's maybe y equals, I don't know, maybe minus 2x. And look at this time, the c is underneath the x-axis, so it tells us that the c must be negative, so it would be like minus 1, crosses at minus 1. They're all possible values for the equation for these sketches. The final one, and the one that you probably won't really meet at National 5, it tends to come up at higher, but we'll include it, and the equation looks totally different from the y equals mx plus c in this case. Going back to your gradient work, you should know that if we have a vertical line, then the gradient's undefined. So I'm just going to draw a vertical line in here. There we go. Still a straight line, but it's vertical this time. Well, the equation is not y equals mx plus c in this case, and this is the special case. This is the only one that it's not y equals mx plus c. Let's say it crosses at this value here, and we'll call it a. Well, the equation for that line is very, very simple. X equals a, where it crosses the x-axis, the value where it crosses the x-axis. So the reason it's x equals is any value, if you put in any coordinate on this line, you'll see that the x value is the same because it's going up vertically. That doesn't change, it's the y value, it changes, the x stays the same. So the equation is x equals a. Now, if we just make it a value, maybe too long, so a possible value for that equation is x equals 2. Okay. Now I wouldn't worry about that one. I don't think I've ever saw it come up at National 5 level, although it could, and you have to know about it. You see it quite a lot at higher. Now, what kind of questions can you get asked for the equation of a straight line? Well, you could be asked to sketch it. So give an equation and sketch it. Very rare. That's usually done at National 4 level. So I won't cover that. I'll just leave that because if you're coming from National 4 or you're in National 5 just now, you'd have done sketching a line a couple of years ago, maybe something like that. Okay, so a very common question is you're given an equation, a straight line equation, and you're asked to write down the gradient and the y-intercept. So here's a wee example for you. Let's write down the equation, the gradient and the y-intercept for this equation. So we'll call it 2x plus y minus 5 is equal to 0. Now that could easily come up at National 5, and it has come up. I've saw that come up quite a lot. And they say write down the gradient and the y-intercept. Now it's really, really important that if we go back to the original format of the equation, y equals mx plus c, it has to be written in this format so that you can read off the gradient and the y-intercept. You can see that this line here is not written in that format, but it is the equation of a straight line. Okay, so we have to rearrange this equation into this format, into y equals, and it must be y equals. So from your knowledge of changing the subject of the formula, let's change the subject of this formula into y equals. Well, y is already here, so we can keep that here, but we have to have this over this side, which means we subtract minus 2x from both sides. So if I do that, I'm left with y minus 5 is equal to minus 2x. And the last wee bit, well, we don't want this minus 5 here, so if we add 5 to both sides, we're left with y equals minus 2x plus 5. Now, the question was, what's the gradient and what's the y-intercept? Well, if you get to this stage here, you will lose marks because you've not answered the question. The minus 2 is the gradient, so gradient is minus 2. If you look at the original equation, m is before the x, there's x there, so the bit before it is minus 2, so the gradient is minus 2. And the y-intercept, well, we'll write that as a coordinate, so y-intercept would be 0, 5. This is the c value. C value when it crosses the y-axis. Now, when it crosses the y-axis, it's not just at 5, it's at 0, 5, the coordinate is 0, 5. Now, I'm going to sketch this, because sometimes they might ask you to do a wee sketch. So, if I'm going to sketch that, we don't have to put any values in when it's a sketch, it's just a rough sketch. So, we'll do something like this. There's the x and y axis. Negative 2, well, we know it's going to slope down the way because it's a negative value. We'll put 5 here. This is where it crosses 0, 5, so this is your c value, and it must go something like that. Okay, that would be a reasonable sketch of that. Okay, so gradient's minus 2, and that point there is 5. You'd have to have that if they ask you to sketch it. Key points on the graph. Okay, that's one type of question. I'll do another one, just so you can get a bit of practice at it. When I write this one down, you could maybe stop the video, have a wee go at it yourself before I show you the answer. Okay. So let's put minus 2 here, minus 2y plus 4 equal to 0. Okay. So you can stop the video, rearrange that into y equals, then do a wee sketch of the line, what it would look like. Identify the gradient and the y-intercept. So, changing the subject to the formula into y equals. So, what we're looking for, y equals mx plus c. So, we have to get rid of the 3x, that has to come over that side, so we'll subtract 3x from both sides. We have to get rid of the 4, so we have to subtract 4 from both sides. So, doing it in 2 stages there, that's minus 3x, minus 4. We've got a lot of negatives there. The last thing we have to do, this is not in the right format yet because it has to be just y. It can't be minus 2y, it has to be y. Look at the format of the equation. So I'm going to divide through by minus 2. Now I have to divide everything by minus 2. Remember your equation work. So negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, so that's just y is equal to a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so that's that's 3 over 2x, not a minus, it's positive. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive again, and it's plus 2. So your gradient, I'll just write it over here, your gradient is positive, so it's 3 over 2. And your y-intercept as a coordinate is 0, 2. And if we draw a wee sketch of that, get my ruler, just a rough sketch. There's my x-axis, my y-axis. Well, the gradient is sloping up the way, so we're going to have to go that way, and it crosses at 2. So identify 2, there's a 2, 0, 2, that's what the y-intercept is, and it slopes up the way. So something like that. And I would just put here gradient is 3 over 2. Okay, so that's one type of question that you could be asked. Normally you're not asked to sketch them, you're normally asked just to get to this point here. But it's always good to have a wee sketch, it gives you a good idea of what you're doing. Get a wee picture. Right, the next thing is you're given the picture. This happens quite a lot. You're given a picture, so and you've asked to write down the equation of the line. They don't always use x and y, sometimes they use different letters. Doesn't matter the letters, as long as you use the letters appropriately. So let's start off with an easy one. Let's put a positive gradient in again. Okay. And let's say it crosses at 0, 3. And you're given a point up here somewhere. And let's, I don't know, call it 5, 6 or something, 5, 6. And the question would say something like, write down the equation of that straight line. Well, you've got enough information here. Maybe want to take a wee note at this point here. To be able to write down the equation of the line, you need two things. You need two coordinates, that's all you need, and then you can work out the equation of the straight line. So 2 points, 2 coordinates. Or, if you're given the gradient in a question, and a point. So as long as you know either one of these, okay, so if you know 2 points, there's 2 points, we can write down the equation of that line. Or if you're given 1 point and the gradient, you can write down the equation of the line. Okay, so we've got this sort of harder work to do. There's a wee bit more to do when you're just given 2 points. Okay, so first thing we want to do is work out the gradient. Remember from the last video, to work out the gradient, independent right angle triangle, it's vertical over horizontal, but at National 5 level we use coordinates, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, so hopefully you remember that. I'll just put this in to remind you, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So let's work out the gradient. So y2, well, that's going to be 6 minus 3, y2 minus y1 over x2, which is 5, minus 0. And that gives me a value, that's 3/5. Or 0.6, whatever you prefer. I like to leave it as fractions. So 3 over 5. Now the y-intercept, well, we don't have to work that out, we can read it from graph, here it is here. The value of c is 3, so c is 3. So the equation is very simple, y equals, there's my gradient, 3/5, x plus 3. Finished. That's a 3 marker in your exam. Normally 1 mark for the gradient, 1 mark for the intercept, and 1 mark for writing down the equation. Let's do a trickier one when it's negatives. So we'll do a negative line. Always a wee bit harder because there's negatives flying about and you can easily get mixed up with the signs. So here's my wee picture again. A negative line, we'll make it a negative intercept as well. Okay. Again, we'll just make the numbers easy. We'll make that minus 2 at this point here. And we'll make the point up here, let's see, minus 4 maybe. Minus 4, 2. Go for something like that. Minus 4, 2. Okay, so you've got 2 points. That means we can work out the equation of the line. So we'll work out the gradient again. Well, this point here, this is a wee bit tricky because I've just put minus 2 there. The actual coordinate for that point is actually 0, minus 2. Okay, quite a lot of times in the exam they'll just write that and you have to know that means 0, minus 2. So let's just write it at the side here so you can see what we're doing in case you're not sure. So the gradient, y2 minus y1, we'll make this y2 minus y1, so that's minus 2 minus another 2, over x2, which is 0, minus 4. So lots of negatives flying about. But before we get an answer to this, we know that this gradient here is negative, so our answer has to be negative. And if we don't get a negative answer here, we've made a mistake. We'd have to go back and see what the mistake is. But minus 2 minus another 2 is minus 4. 0 minus minus 4 is positive 4. So negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. So the gradient is negative 1. So we know that seems reasonable. Again, it crosses at minus 2. So my C value is minus 2. So final answer, y equals, my gradient is minus 1. So we just say minus x. The minus means minus 1x, but we'd never put the 1 in. Minus another 2. And that's our equation. Hopefully you're picking this up now. Again, as I said to you, 3 marks in your exam. It's an easy 3 marks, and it's, if you're any idea of doing higher, you have to know this inside out. This is a very important topic for higher. The next one I'm going to do with you is very similar to what we just did, but it is slightly harder. This time we're not given the y-intercept, we're just given any 2 coordinates. So how does that work? How do we get the y-intercept in? Well, hopefully we'll be able to work that out. Remember, to get an equation in a straight line, all we need is 2 points. Okay, so let's make up 2 points. Let's put 1 point here, make that 3, 4. I'm going to put a point down here somewhere, minus, I don't know, minus 4, 2. It can't be 2 because it would be above the x-axis, so let's make it minus 4 minus 2. Okay, minus 4 minus 2. So, question, what's the equation in a straight line? Well, we work out the gradient. y2 minus y1, so we'll make this y2 this time, so that's 4 minus minus 2, so that's 4 minus negative 2, all over 3 minus minus 4. Okay, so working that through, again before we actually work it out, it needs to be a positive gradient, so that's going to give me 6. And that's going to give me 7 in the ball, so 6 over 7. So the gradient is 6 over 7. Okay, quite often you get fractions when you do this type of thing. But how do we find C? Oh, well, C is where it crosses the y-axis. Oh, well, that looks a wee bit hard. It's going to be here. This is your C value here. How do we work that out? We don't have any values on our graph. Well, we have to solve the equation. So the equation in a straight line looks like y equals m, but we know what m is, we just worked it out, so that's 6 over 7 x plus c. So we have to find c. We know the gradient. We also know x and y, because any point that lies in the line is x and y. So I'm going to use 3, 4 because that's easier, because there's negatives in here, so that just mix it up a wee bit. So let's do 3, 4. So this is your x coordinate and that's your y coordinate. So we have 4 is equal to 6 over 7 times my x coordinate, which is 3, plus c. And we just work that out. So this is not going to be great. I don't think we have to multiply through by 7, so that's going to give me 28 is equal to 18 plus 7c. Swap it round. C is equal to 28 minus, let's try again, I'm trying to go too quick there, let's swap it around, let's take our time. 7c plus 18 is equal to 28, subtract 18 from both sides, so 7c is equal to 10, so c is equal to 10 over 7. Okay, just take my time there. It's quite easy to make a mistake. So our final answer for the equation is a rather complicated. I'll just write it over here. Y equals the gradient, which is 6 over 7 x plus 10 over 7. Now let's just double check to make sure that's right. It needs to be a positive gradient. Yeah, it seems a positive gradient, and a positive y-intercept because it's above the x-axis. Yeah, that seems reasonable as well. So our answer seems reasonable. Well, that was quite complicated. I just made up the numbers, so they got a wee bit trickier there. Okay. Right, what else can we ask you? I don't think there's much more than that. I think that's mostly it. Oh, I suppose we could ask you where it crosses the x-axis and the y-axis. Well, the y-axis, well, we already know that's the y-intercept. Yeah, we could get asked an equation. Where does the line cross the x-axis? Now that'll be really at the top end. It's not difficult, but it really sorts out the people who really know what they're doing in straight line, because it's a thinking question. So let's make up a line and let's put in coordinates. So let's put in, what can we do, 3, 2 maybe? Let's put a 3, 2 in there, and let's put a negative 1 down here somewhere. Say negative 2, 4. Well, it can't be 4, must be negative 4. Negative 2, negative 4, yeah. So they seem reasonable. So, for this last question, let's work out the equation and let's work out where it crosses the x-axis. Now, the y-intercept is here, that's your c value. Where it crosses x-axis, well, that's not the c value. That's just some value when it crosses x-axis. So let's deal with that once we get the equation. So let's work out the equation first. So gradient. Well, the gradient is going to be positive. y2 is 2, y1 is minus 4, so that's 2 minus 4 over 3 is x2 minus x1, which is minus 2. So that gives me 6 in the top and 5 in the bottom. So there you go. So my gradient is 6 over 5. Y-intercept, well, again, y-intercept is here. We aren't given any values on our sketch, so we have to work it out. So we know the equation is y equals mx plus c, but we worked out m, so that's 6 over 5 x plus c. Again, we know x and y, we pick any point we like that's on the line. Pick 3, 2, again just because it's easier. So y is 2, and we've got 6 over 5 times 3 plus c. So working that out, multiply through by 5 to get rid of the fraction, so that's going to give me 10 is equal to 18 plus 5c. Okay. Rearrange it, so just be careful again. Don't try and go too quick. So we've swapped it round, subtract 18 from both sides. So that gives me 5c then is equal to minus 8. And divide through by 5. So c is equal to minus 8 over 5. Again, quite complicated. So I'll just put it over here. Y equals, this is our equation, 6 over 5x minus 8 over 5. Now, let's just make sure that it seems reasonable. Positive gradient, negative y-intercept, negative y-intercept. Now, in this question, where does it cross here? The x-axis, this point here. What's that point there? Well, a wee bit of thinking needed. Well, on the x-axis, you should know that the y is 0. Anything along the x-axis, it'll be something 0. So where y is 0, so essentially what we've got is 0 is equal to 6 over 5 x minus 8 over 5. So we have to solve that. So that's going back to first year work. First, second year work, just solve that equation for x. So first thing we'll do is multiply through by 5. That's the easiest thing. So we get 0 is equal to 6x minus 8. That's been multiplied through by 5. I'll just times the 5 here just so you can see what we've done. Rearrange it, so we have 6x then is equal to 8. And divide through and simplify. So divide through by 6 and simplify it. We get x is equal to 4 over 3 when it's simplified. So the coordinate way of this point here on the x-axis is 4 over 3, 0. So that's that point there. I'll just put it here so you can see that. Okay. I think that's about everything you can get at National 5. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. I'll post this on the YouTube channel so everyone can see it.